Today, on the 16th of June, my home country, South Africa, celebrates National Youth Day. In light of everything that's been going on around the world, I would like to share with you why we celebrate Youth Day and what Youth Day means to our country. Now, I know we like to look at the States a lot and all the things going on there, but what's happening there has been happening in many other places around the world for a very long time. So here's a bit of South African history for you. On June 16th, 1976, South Africa was still under the Apartheid law. Apartheid, meaning separateness, was a political system during the era of white minority rule. Under this system, the people of South Africa were divided by their race, and the different races were forced to live separately from each other. Strict and brutal rules were in place to ensure that segregation was abided by. Naturally, this impacted the education system. South Africa has a wealthy mix of native people from different cultures, including the Bantu cultures and their different languages. And the Bantu education system was designed to train and fit Africans for their role in the newly evolving apartheid society. Meaning that besides lacking most white school privileges, these kids were not to be taught in their mother tongue, as Afrikaans and English were made the compulsory medium languages of instruction. In addition to this, schools in black communities were overcrowded and underfunded. Most classrooms had to accommodate 7 times their capacity. So imagine, instead of having 20 kids in a classroom, there were 140 kids crammed into one space. Over the years, calls to change the Bantu education system were completely ignored, and the students had had enough. On that day in 1976, on a Wednesday morning, in the township of Soweto, the students, some of which were affiliated to student organizations against oppression, started a peaceful protest. About 20,000 South African school-going children rose up against the apartheid government. They were marching from Orlando West Secondary School in Vilakazi Street to Orlando Stadium in Soweto. They were met by heavily armed police force who fired tear gas to disperse them, creating panic. The police then used live ammunition to shoot at the students. The first documented fatality was a 12-year-old pupil, Hector Peterson. Mbuyisa Makubo, a schoolmate, carried him to Pefeni Clinic, with Peterson's sister, Antoinette, running next to him. Hundreds and hundreds of students died that day. Thousands were injured. The exact numbers are still unknown. The protests continued in Soweto for 2 days, with students looting and torching anything associated with the apartheid government, including government offices and buses. When South Africa became a democratic state in 1994 under the ANC government, the apartheid-based education system was abolished. However, the apartheid legacy is still very much palpable in our country. Only a few public schools offer learners in their foundation phase to be taught in their mother tongue, and many schools still only teach in English or Afrikaans. Many schools are lacking the funding to ensure proper fair education, electricity, running water, and proper sanitation facilities. A lot of the funding has been lost to corrupt leaders in government, filling their own pockets. So today we celebrate those kids who rose up, who made their voices heard, who had the courage to risk their lives to fight against the system of oppression. And of course, we remember those who lost their lives on the 16th of June, 1976 in Soweto, South Africa. The legacy of the Soweto Uprising is still alive today. But I wonder, what will it take for freedom to become a reality in South Africa? What will it take for freedom to become reality in the world? Because at this point, to so many around the world, freedom is just a fairy tale.